Hey, Drill, what happened to her face? Did the war fight back? A young recruit snickered, pointing at the scarred woman standing silently by the barracks door. She didn't respond, just turned slightly and kept walking. Moments later, a black SUV pulled up. A decorated four-star general stepped out, saw her, and in front of every recruit, he stood at attention. No one dared to breathe. Her name was Ava Delaney, 39 years old, lean frame, straight shoulders, stern face that rarely showed emotion, short hair with early streaks of gray, and burn scars clearly visible running from her right jaw down to her neck. Ava worked as a tactical instructor at Fort Bishop Training Camp, responsible for survival training and combat response protocols. Despite being a woman in a male-dominated environment, Ava never backed down from anyone. But she also never boasted about her capabilities. The new recruits always speculated about her background, probably just a kitchen accident. Who is she anyway? She never raises her voice. Look at those scars. Obviously wasn't very good on the battlefield. One new recruit named Briggs, 20 years old, looked at Ava across the training yard and made his cruel observation. Bet she can't even shoot straight. One look at that face tells you everything. Ava heard him, but like every other time, she remained silent. She continued her rounds, checking equipment, reviewing training schedules, maintaining the professional distance that had become her trademark. What the recruits didn't understand was that Ava's silence wasn't weakness. It was discipline, the kind of self-control that comes from seeing things that would break most people. She'd learned long ago that actions speak louder than words, that competence matters more than conversation, that respect is earned through results, not rhetoric. Every morning, she'd arrive at the training facility before dawn, check safety equipment, review the day's exercises, make sure everything was prepared for the recruits who'd spend the day learning skills they hoped they'd never need in real combat. She watched them struggle with basic survival techniques, saw them panic during simulated emergency scenarios, listened to them complain about training that was too hard or unrealistic, but she never told them what real combat looked like, never described what it felt like to carry wounded soldiers through gunfire, never explained why the scars on her face meant she'd been exactly where they were afraid to go. She just taught them what they needed to know to survive, and hoped they'd never need to use it. 3 minutes after Briggs made his comment, a convoy of black SUVs appeared at the main gate. A four-star general stepped out of the lead vehicle, wearing full-dress uniform with ribbons that told the story of a distinguished military career. And then something happened that no one expected. He walked directly to Ava, came to full attention, and saluted her with the respect reserved for heroes. Comment: earned respect. If you know that real authority doesn't need to announce itself. 12 years earlier, Ava had been Staff Sergeant Delaney, serving as a combat medic at Forward Operating Base Redwood on the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. It was a dangerous posting. Daily patrols, frequent contact with enemy forces, and the constant threat of improvised explosive devices. On a cold November night, everything went wrong. A supply convoy returning to base hit a roadside bomb. One of the Humvees flipped and caught fire, trapping 6 soldiers inside. Standard protocol was to wait for the explosive ordnance disposal team to clear the area for additional devices. But the vehicle was burning fast, and there wasn't time. Ava ran toward the burning wreckage without waiting for orders. She pulled 5 soldiers to safety, one by one, while ammunition cooked off inside the vehicle and enemy fire came from the surrounding hills. The last soldier trapped inside was Private First Class Royce Jr., son of General Calvin Royce. When Ava went back for him, a fuel tank exploded. The blast threw her 15 feet and left her with burns across the right side of her face and neck, but she'd gotten everyone out alive. Ava spent 3 months in a military hospital, undergoing skin grafts and reconstructive surgery. When she was discharged, the Army offered her a promotion, a medal ceremony, and a transfer to a prestigious assignment. She declined all of it. "Keep my name out of the newspapers," she'd said. "I didn't do it for recognition." Instead, she requested a transfer to training duty, somewhere quiet, where she could teach others without being in the spotlight. For 12 years, she'd worked at various training facilities, always competent, always professional, always silent about her past. No one knew who she was. Most people assumed she was just another veteran, maybe someone who'd been injured in a non-combat accident. But General Calvin Royce never forgot. He remembered every word Ava had screamed into her radio that night. "Don't let that helicopter turn around. I still have one man in there." He remembered the sight of her emerging from the flames, carrying his unconscious son on her back. He remembered visiting her in the hospital, where she'd refused to let him thank her publicly. "Your son is alive," she'd said. "That's all the thanks I need." For 12 years, General Royce had been tracking Ava's career quietly. He knew where she was stationed, knew she was training the next generation of soldiers, knew she was still serving, even though she could have retired with full benefits. And he'd been waiting for the right moment to do what should have been done years ago. When he received word that he'd be conducting an inspection at Fort Bishop, he knew the time had come. He arranged his schedule specifically to visit during Ava's training shift. He wanted to see her in action, wanted to observe how she interacted with the recruits. What he found was exactly what he'd expected: a consummate professional who was training young soldiers with skill and dedication while receiving none of the respect she deserved. And when he overheard Recruit Briggs making cruel comments about her scars, he decided it was time to set the record straight. Comment: heroes among us. If you believe the most important people are often the most invisible, General Royce walked directly across the training yard toward Ava, his stride purposeful and commanding. Every conversation stopped. Every recruit froze. He approached Ava, looked her directly in the eyes, and rendered a full military salute with perfect precision. Ava returned the salute with quiet dignity, her expression unchanged, but her eyes showing recognition. General Royce held his salute for a full 10 seconds, then addressed the assembled recruits in a voice that carried across the entire training area. "This woman is not just an instructor, she is the reason my son is alive today." The training yard fell completely silent except for the distant sound of helicopters and the flags snapping in the wind. 12 years ago, on one of the darkest nights of my life, Staff Sergeant Delaney ran into a burning vehicle under enemy fire to save 6 trapped soldiers. Recruit Briggs, who had been smirking moments before, now looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. General Royce continued, "She sustained severe burns and injuries while pulling my son and 5 other soldiers from that wreckage. She could have died. She should have died, but she didn't stop until everyone was safe." A training sergeant whispered to his colleague, "My God, that was her." "I've presented many medals and honors during my career," General Royce said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "But the person who deserved them most never accepted them." He reached into his uniform jacket and withdrew a small insignia, a black phoenix, the symbol of the Special Rescue Forces. He pinned it to Ava's left shoulder, officially recognizing her service in front of the entire training unit. Recruit Briggs, pale and shaking, stepped forward. "Ma'am, I didn't know. I didn't mean..." Ava looked at him steadily. "You don't need to know who I am to treat people with respect, soldier." The lesson hit every recruit like a physical blow. They realized they'd been mocking someone who'd risked everything to save others. General Royce wasn't finished. "Effective immediately, this training facility will be renamed. From today forward, you'll be training at the Staff Sergeant Ava Delaney Tactical Training Center." A murmur of approval rippled through the assembled soldiers and instructors. "Furthermore," the general continued, "Staff Sergeant Delaney will be promoted to the rank of Sergeant First Class, with all privileges and responsibilities thereof." Ava spoke for the first time. "Sir, with respect, I don't need rank or recognition. I just want to train these soldiers to survive what I survived." "Which is exactly why you deserve both," General Royce replied. He turned to address the recruits directly. "You have the privilege of learning from someone who didn't just study combat survival. She lived it, she bled for it, and she carries the scars to prove it." Recruit Briggs raised his hand tentatively. "Ma'am, how do we make this right?" Ava considered his question. "By remembering that everyone you meet has fought battles you know nothing about, by treating people with dignity regardless of what they look like, and by understanding that heroism doesn't always come with fanfare." General Royce added, "The next time you see someone with visible scars, remember that those marks might represent the most courageous moments of their life." As the ceremony concluded, every recruit, every instructor, every officer present came to attention and saluted Ava Delaney. She stood there, still quiet, still dignified, finally receiving the recognition she'd never sought but always deserved. The woman they'd mocked for her scars was revealed to be exactly what those scars represented: someone who'd risked everything to save others. Comment, scars tell stories, if you believe visible wounds often mark invisible courage. 3 weeks later, a new sign was installed at the main entrance to the training facility. SFC Ava Delaney Tactical Training Center. Survivor, Savior, Instructor. The recruit's attitude toward Ava transformed completely. Where there had once been whispered speculation, there was now genuine respect. Photographs of her rescue operation were displayed in the training center lobby, though Ava tried to avoid being photographed for new pictures. Ava didn't change her teaching methods or her quiet demeanor. She remained the same professional, demanding instructor she'd always been. But now, recruits hung on her every word. They understood they were learning from someone who'd proven herself under the worst possible conditions. Sometimes a recruit would quietly leave a handwritten note on her desk. "Thank you for what you did for people we'll never know." One afternoon, Private First Class Royce Jr., or now a grown man with his own military career, came to visit the woman who'd saved his life. "I walk, I breathe, I have a family. Because of you," he told her. "Every step I take is because of your courage that night." Ava smiled slightly. "I just did what was right. You're the one who made that sacrifice meaningful by living a good life." "I named my daughter after you," he said, "Ava Rose Royce, so she'll always know that heroes are real." General Royce visited the training center regularly, not for official inspections, but to observe how Ava was shaping the next generation of soldiers. "She's teaching them more than survival techniques," he told his aide. "She's teaching them what it means to serve others before yourself." Recruit Briggs, humbled by his experience, became one of Ava's most dedicated students. He requested extra training sessions and eventually graduated at the top of his class. At his graduation ceremony, he sought out Ava. "Ma'am, I want to apologize again for what I said." "You don't need to apologize anymore, soldier. You learned from it. That's what matters." "Will you be proud if I serve with honor?" "I'm already proud. You went from judgment to understanding. That's the kind of growth that makes good soldiers." The training center became known throughout the military for producing exceptionally well-prepared soldiers. Other bases started requesting transfers to learn from the woman who teaches courage by example. But Ava remained the same, quiet, competent, and focused on preparing young soldiers for challenges she hoped they'd never face. Comment, teaching by example, if you know that the best lessons come from people who've lived them. There are people who never need to tell their story, because their scars already told it. Ava Delaney didn't need titles or recognition, but the respect she finally received was long overdue. This world has people like her everywhere. They've walked through fire, endured mockery, survived in silence, and still stand straight when others bow their heads. The most dangerous assumption is that someone with visible wounds is somehow less capable than someone without them. The most important lesson is that courage leaves marks: physical scars, emotional scars, spiritual scars. But those marks don't make someone broken. They make someone proven. Look around you. The quiet person at work, the reserved neighbor, the unassuming teacher. They might be carrying stories of heroism that would humble you. Don't judge by appearances. Don't mock what you don't understand. And remember that the person you're looking at might have saved lives you'll never know about. Honor the scars, respect the silence, and understand that sometimes a salute can change everything. Because heroes don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they just stand quietly until someone with the courage to see them gives them the recognition they deserve. Comment, she spoke through action, if this story changed how you see the people around you.